First off, a financial first for the continent. The Central African Republic has adopted Bitcoin as legal tender. Lawmakers unanimously approved a law legalizing the cryptocurrency alongside the CFA franc. But on the streets of Bangui, there's Bitcoin bafflement, as DW's Zikoto Chaya reports.
Cryptocurrency? I don't know what it means.
Sylvie is one of millions of Central Africans who hasn't got a clue what the cryptocurrency burst is all about. Bitcoin needs fast internet, but in the Central African Republic, only 11% of the population have internet access. Many do not even have the smartphones required for the electronic transactions.
When I'm selling and a customer gives me a note, I pay them back with coins. What is this cryptocurrency thing again? I learned that you need an internet connection to work with cryptocurrency. But look at my phone. It can't connect to the internet. How could I use cryptocurrency?
Most parts of the country were rebel-controlled territory, and very few have any internet coverage at all. Even here in the capital, the bit rate is slow. It is hard to imagine how Bitcoin is going to work under these conditions. But 7% of the population do have better internet access. Jean Galvanis is one of the lawmakers who voted for the bill. He says change is coming.
Access to internet, I believe it's a right. It's not a privilege anymore in today's economy. The government has invested with the help of the African Development Bank and many other partners to bring fiber optics. We are in a process of implementing fiber optic within the next 12 months. Fiber optic will be operational in our country, so everyone who has the means can get access to the internet.
But the opposition rejects the new law and plans to challenge it in the Constitutional Court. The Central African Republic has a currency. It is one of 6 Central African countries that share the CFA franc, backed by France and pegged to the euro. Some members of parliament argue that the move is simply intended to gut this common currency. Others have speculated that Bitcoin might be used to funnel money from the Central African Republic to Russia, bypassing international sanctions. Wilfried Zapauco, a financial analyst, rejects claims of Russian influence.
Why are people always saying Russia is influencing decisions taken by the Central African authorities? No, external influence has nothing to do with CAR adopting the cryptocurrency law. The advantage of the cryptocurrency here is that it is a currency that is virtual. Major powers have long been using cryptocurrency before it surfaced here in CAR. It will mean financial transactions can be secured by Central African financial institutions.
The government is presenting the adoption of the Bitcoin in the Central African Republic as a decisive step, opening up new opportunities. But bringing in Bitcoin has triggered widespread doubts about the motives behind the move.
I'm joined now by Joy Bira, a business correspondent from Nairobi, Kenya. Hello, Joy. Now, we heard Sylvie at the start of that report. She hasn't got a clue what cryptocurrency like Bitcoin is. Can you briefly explain how it works?
Right, Eddie, thanks for having me. Well, digital currency, or in this case, cryptocurrency, is a digital payment system that, unlike usual banks that have to go through verification systems, do not do that. So they do not rely on banks to verify their transactions. Instead, they use encryptions to verify their transactions. One has a public and a private key that they use digitally. And this means you need to have access to internet for you to be able to trade in cryptocurrencies, or in this case, Bitcoin.
So you touched on so many different aspects of it, but it's not controlled by a central bank. So if you have money in your pocket, its value is guaranteed by the central bank. But who guarantees Bitcoins?
Well, the thing about cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin being one of them, or the most traded one of the cryptocurrencies, is that there's no regulation, and it's only between you as the buyer of the Bitcoin or transactor of Bitcoin that has a public and private key. It makes it risky because it's internet-based and relies heavily on blockchain technology. So should there be any kind of risk involved, there's a possibility that one could lose all of the investment or all of their money.
That sounds scary. I mean, there's a lot of people talking about why or wondering why the Central African Republic will even adopt cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, as its legal tender. In figuring out why, we've also seen increasing Russian influence in the Central African Republic, which some commentators have linked with this move. What might Bitcoin have to do with Russia and sanctions?
Well, there's two ways to look at it. And one is with the ongoing sanctions that are being slapped on Russia as a result of its war in Ukraine. And that in itself has led to many African countries that are heavily reliant on funding from the West, and in particular the United States of America, to now also start to take action on some of Russia's relations with many African countries. And so this means that any transactions are going to be affected, and trade in the US dollar is also going to be affected. So that could explain why Russia is being linked to the Bitcoin adoption in the Central African Republic, because Russia has tried as much as it could to increase its influence in Central African countries, the Central African Republic being one of the countries where Russia has invested quite a bit. And the other way to look at it is that Russia is also trying to get at its quote-unquote enemies in the West, one of the countries being France, and them using the influence of Bitcoin could explain why they're having much to say in terms, or at least there's a suspicion that Russia is having influence on the CAR's involvement in adopting Bitcoin as legal tender.
So now, briefly, talking about the Central African Republic, it's a country that is rich in resources, diamonds, gold, and uranium, but also one of the poorest countries on the planet. Who will benefit from this change and how?
So it's safe to say, Eddie, that the Central African Republic, being a country with about 5 million people and a per capita of about $525, that really doesn't guarantee the decision that has been made by the country in itself to adopt this over the CFA franc. But then again, if you look at the number of users of internet in the Central African Republic, it doesn't exceed 600,000. So that could mean that these same 600,000 people are the people who drive the economy, for lack of a better way to put it. But where does that leave the rest of the 4 million Central African Republicans? This means the inequality gaps are quite wide and could even widen more with the adoption of Bitcoin as we see it.
So many more questions to ask, but due to time, we'll leave it here. Joy Bira, business correspondent in Nairobi, Kenya. Thank you.